Have you ever tried speaking to someone who just absolutely doesn't speak your language?
Oh, yeah. Like when you're traveling and you just hit that absolute wall of confusion.
Right. And they inevitably look at you with total confusion, and instinctively, you just start shouting the exact same words, but louder.
It is the most absurd human reflex.
It totally is. You're just standing there in some, coffee shop in another country, yelling the word for milk as if the sheer acoustic force of your vocal cords will just magically translate the vocabulary for them.
Like volume equals fluency or something.
Exactly. And we've all done it, or at least seen it happen. But the wild thing is, we actually do this in our marriages and our closest relationships all the time.
We really do. We treat the volume knobs on our voices like we're turning up the clarity.
When in reality, all we are doing is creating massive amounts of static.
Yeah, it's a profound blind spot in human communication. We just blast out this signal, thinking louder means clearer.
Which brings us to the mission for today's deep dive. We are looking at excerpts from Beyond the Volume, The Logic of Raised Voices in Marriage. Specifically, a piece called The Raw Truth, Why Couples Raise Their Voice When They Talk.
And we should clarify, we aren't just here to wag a finger at you and say, hey, stop yelling.
No, absolutely not. I mean, everybody already knows that yelling hurts the people we love. It shuts down conversations entirely.
Right. What we are really unpacking today is the hidden logic behind that volume.
We need to look past the noise, right, to understand the raw truth of why that escalation happens in the first place.
Exactly. And how we can actually decode those distress signals that get buried under all the shouting.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because if you are listening right now, whether you are the person who runs a little hot and tends to raise your voice, or, maybe you find yourself constantly on the receiving end of someone else's volume, this is going to completely reframe your next argument.
Oh, for sure. Because to stop the cycle, you really have to understand the triggers.
And when you look at the psychology of a raised voice, based on the text, it almost never starts with pure malice, does it?
No, it really doesn't. I mean, people don't wake up, look at their partner, and think, well, I'm going to actively disrespect my favorite person today.
Right. That's just not how it works. It usually starts with something so much more vulnerable, like feeling completely ignored.
Yeah, feeling ignored is the seed for so many conflicts. When someone feels unseen or unheard in a relationship, their anxiety just spikes.
And that's when that flawed internal logic kicks in.
Exactly. They think, well, if I just get louder, maybe they will finally take me seriously. Maybe they'll stop dismissing me.
But because we are wired for self-protection, the exact opposite happens.
Right. The moment that volume crosses a certain decibel level, the listener's brain interprets that sound not as a plea for attention, but as an actual physical threat.
Right. The listener isn't hearing, please notice me. They're literally just hearing sirens.
Which is tragic when you think about it.
It is wild. Because that desperate attempt to force a connection completely destroys any possibility of one.
It absolutely pushes the other person away.
But it isn't always just an immediate reaction to being ignored, is it? Because sometimes a massive, screaming fight erupts over absolutely nothing.
Oh, the classic fight about nothing.
Yeah, like you'll see a couple absolutely tearing into each other because someone left a water glass on the coffee table. Or because they were like 5 minutes late getting ready for dinner.
What's fascinating here is the illusion of the inciting incident. Because the argument is almost never actually about the water glass.
Right.
The water glass is just the match that got dropped into a room completely filled with gasoline.
And that gasoline is emotional buildup.
Exactly. It's the slow boil of unspoken resentments. So many of us are culturally conditioned to just avoid conflict at all costs.
Just swallow our irritation.
Yeah. Our partner does something that hurts us. We say, oh, I'm fine, it's not a big deal, but we quietly file it away.
Oh, the mental filing cabinet. We just shove it in there for weeks or months or even years.
And then one Tuesday night, the dishwasher is loaded wrong.
And suddenly you're yelling about something that happened on a vacation in 2019.
Exactly. The reaction feels so wildly out of proportion because it's not a reaction to the present moment at all. It's an avalanche.
An avalanche of every suppressed frustration just finally finding an exit route.
Which leads directly into another crucial element from the text that we really have to examine, and that is the invisible baggage we bring into our homes.
Right, the learned behavior, because we don't just inherit eye color and height from our families.
No, we inherit conflict resolution templates.
Wow, conflict resolution templates.
Yeah. If you grew up in a household where talking over each other was just the standard baseline of communication, where doors slammed, voices were raised, and nobody ever softened their tone, Your brain mapped that as completely normal.
You essentially downloaded a totally faulty operating system for handling stress.
That's a great way to put it. So you get married, the first real conflict hits, and you just default to the programming.
And when your partner gets upset, you pull out that classic defense, this is just how I talk, I'm just passionate.
Right, the passion excuse. But the reality of a mature partnership requires us to stop using our past as an excuse for collateral damage in the present.
Yeah, we have to learn how our spouse actually receives our energy, rather than just relying on how we are used to expressing it.
Which brings us to the fourth and maybe the deepest, most difficult trigger to admit, and that's fear.
Fear. A raised voice is so often just a shield for absolute terror, isn't it?
It really is. When a person feels deeply afraid of being abandoned or controlled or misunderstood, they come in hot.
They get loud because they feel emotionally unsafe.
Exactly. They're just trying to seize control of a spiraling dynamic.
And here's where it gets really interesting. Because the ultimate tragedy of all these triggers, whether it's feeling ignored or the emotional buildup, the childhood baggage, or the fear, is the literal translation error that happens between two people.
The translation error is huge.
Because the person yelling thinks they're communicating their pain, but the receiver is literally incapable of translating that message.
Let's look at the mechanics of that translation error for a second, because it really explains so much about why arguments just go in endless circles.
Yeah, break down the neurology of that heated argument.
Well, when the sender's voice gets loud and harsh, the receiver's amygdala, that primitive, survival-focused part of the brain, it just hijacks the whole system.
So logic just goes out the window.
Totally offline. The prefrontal cortex, which handles logic, empathy, understanding, it just shuts down. So the sender might be thinking to themselves, I am drowning here, please listen to me.
Right. But the receiver, because they're caught in that fight or flight response, translates that incoming data strictly as, you are attacking me.
Exactly. Listen to me becomes you are attacking me.
Let's put that in a real-world scenario to make it concrete.
Yeah.
So you are trying to get dinner ready. The kids are screaming. You are incredibly stressed out.
We've all been there.
Right.
Yeah.
And you look over at your spouse, who is calmly scrolling on their phone on the couch, and you just snap. You raise your voice and yell, could you actually help me for once?
A classic line.
Right. And in your head, the direct translation is, I am overwhelmed. This matters to me. I need you.
But the spouse on the couch doesn't hear a plea for partnership. They don't hear, I need you.
No, they hear the raised voice.
They hear the raised voice and they hear that absolute phrase, for once, and their brain translates that entirely as, you do not respect me and you are blaming me.
Oh, wow. So instead of standing up to chop vegetables, they stand up to defend their character.
Exactly. They say, I just worked a 10-hour shift. Why are you always on my case?
And suddenly, you aren't talking about dinner anymore at all.
Nope. You are in a full-blown referendum on who works harder.
It's a complete short circuit. But, I have to push back on this a little bit, just on behalf of the person who's genuinely hurting in that moment.
Sure.
Isn't it incredibly frustrating that when a person is in genuine pain, or they are just completely overwhelmed, they are suddenly expected to perfectly modulate their tone?
It is deeply frustrating.
Like if I'm drowning in that kitchen, shouldn't my partner be able to look past my snappy tone and just see the reality of the pain? Why is the burden entirely on the person in distress to sound like a calm, perfectly detached news anchor?
It is an incredibly heavy burden. And having your tone policed when you are in genuine distress can feel like a massive invalidation of your reality.
Yeah, you just want to scream, stop focusing on how I'm saying it and listen to what I'm saying.
But we have to accept the biological reality of human connection here. The right message delivered in the wrong tone still causes damage.
Because of the amygdala hijack.
Exactly. You can have a completely righteous hurt, right, a totally valid concern. But if you present it in a way that forces your spouse into a defensive posture, the validity of your concern gets completely lost in the collateral damage.
So what does this all mean?
Well, it means a successful relationship requires a level of maturity where we accept that delivery is half the message.
We have to care just as much about how we say something as we care about what we are saying.
Precisely.
But how do we actually short-circuit this translation error before it explodes? The source material gives us some very practical steps, and it starts with perhaps the most difficult thing to do in the heat of the moment.
Putting a pin in it before the amygdala takes over entirely. Step 1 is taking a deliberate pause.
So just stopping mid-argument.
The moment you feel your heart rate spike, your chest tighten, and that instinct to reach for the volume knob, you have to hit the brakes. You use a phrase like, I'm getting too upset right now and I want to talk about this, but can we take 10 minutes and come back to it?
But wait, let's explore that pause for a second, because I can hear a lot of listeners thinking that a pause sounds suspiciously like a weapon.
How so?
Well, if I am trying to express my hurt, and my partner holds up a hand and says, I need a 10-minute pause, how do I, as the listener, know they aren't just running away? How do I know I'm not just being shut down and dismissed all over again?
That is a crucial distinction. A pause is not avoidance.
Right.
Walking out of the room and slamming the door without a word, that is avoidance. A true pause is an act of immense self-control. It is wisdom.
Because you are recognizing your own state.
Yes.
Yeah.
You are recognizing that your current emotional state is going to produce a destructive reaction, and you are actively protecting your partner from that reaction.
I see.
The absolute key to a successful pause is the commitment to return. It's a comma, not a period. When you say, can we take 10 minutes and come back to this, you are providing safety. You are reassuring them that the conversation isn't over, but the combat is.
A timeout, not a walkout.
Yeah,
I love that.
It changes everything.
And when you do come back, step 2 is literally lowering the decibel level and shifting how we name the problem.
Yes. Instead of throwing out an accusation, we have to name the internal feeling.
So instead of walking back into the room and saying, you never listened to me.
Right. You shift the vocabulary to your own emotional state. You say, when you look at your phone while I'm talking, I feel completely unheard and dismissed.
You are removing the attack on their character. You aren't telling them who they are. You are telling them how you feel.
And when you do that, you pave the way for the third step, which is the most critical shift in any argument. Stopping the quest to win and starting the quest to understand.
Because so often, we're just listening to reload.
Yes, listening to reload. While the other person is talking, we aren't actually absorbing their words. We are silently searching our mental archives for the perfect comeback to prove them wrong.
Oh, the silent cross-examination. We have all done it. You're just waiting for them to take a breath so you can drop your airtight counterargument.
But the text highlights a specific, actionable phrase that completely dismantles that courtroom dynamic. It's almost like a magic trick for the brain.
What's the phrase?
After your partner speaks, instead of launching into your defense, you pause and you say, let me repeat back what I heard to make sure I understand. Did I get that right?
Did I get that right? Wow.
Did I get that right? Is the ultimate circuit breaker for an argument. When you ask that question, you are forced to actually process their words, not just your rebuttal.
And neurologically, for the person who is just speaking, hearing their own pain repeated back to them calmly must completely shift the atmosphere of the room.
It totally moves the dynamic from hostile judgment to genuine curiosity. Suddenly, your spouse feels seen instead of scrutinized.
It's the difference between an attacking statement and an inviting statement. And we can literally script this upgrade. Think about the standard things we yell when we are pushed to the brink.
Let's hear some. Well, instead of yelling an absolute like, you don't care about me at all, which just guarantees a defensive response, you upgrade that to an invitation. You say, I am feeling really uncared for right now, and I just need some reassurance from you.
Yes.
Or instead of throwing your hands up and yelling, I'm so tired of this, you always do this, you shift to, I'm exhausted by this pattern we keep falling into, and I want us to fix it together. Notice the use of the word us. Exactly.
Yeah.
Attacking language creates a me versus you scenario. Inviting language creates an us versus the problem scenario. It brings your spouse into the architecture of your inner world rather than locking them out.
That's step 4, the marriage rule. You don't have to agree immediately, but you do have to speak respectfully, disagreeing while still honoring your spouse.
Right.
But let's flip the script completely here. What if you are the one standing in the kitchen and you're the one being yelled at?
Ah, the receiver's responsibility.
Yeah, because we've put a lot of focus on the person raising their voice and how they need to regulate their delivery. What is the responsibility of the receiver in all this? Can they just say, well, you're yelling, so I'm completely ignoring everything you say until you use your inside voice?
As tempting as that is, no. You cannot automatically throw out the core concern just because you didn't like the packaging it arrived in.
Even if the delivery is terrible.
Yes. Now, obviously, the tone is unacceptable and boundaries absolutely need to be set around verbal abuse. But growth in a relationship requires mutual responsibility.
So if your partner is escalating to the point of shouting, You have to honestly ask yourself a tough question.
You do. You have to ask, is there something they have been trying to calmly tell me for the last month that I have simply been ignoring?
You have to own your part in the buildup. But practically speaking, standing there in the moment, what is a line the receiver can actually use to de-escalate without invalidating the other person?
You need a phrase that validates their message while simultaneously placing a strict boundary on the delivery.
Okay, what does that sound like?
Something like, I really want to hear what you're saying right now, but I need us to lower our voices.
I like that.
Or even more directly, I care deeply about this, but I cannot receive it while we are yelling. Let's sit down and lower the volume so I can actually understand you.
I cannot receive it. That is incredibly powerful. It doesn't say you are crazy or you are wrong. It just states a biological fact. The volume is preventing the reception of the message.
This raises an important question about the overall balance of a relationship, too. It highlights how both people are usually contributing to the dysfunction simultaneously.
Right.
The person yelling clearly has to do the heavy lifting of working on their tone and emotional regulation, but the person receiving might need to do the heavy lifting of tuning in and actually listening before things reach a boiling point.
Both things are true at once.
Exactly.
It's a dual-lane highway. And as we start to zoom out from these tactical, on-the-ground scripts, we hit a much broader, deeper philosophy in the text about why we communicate in the first place.
Yes, the philosophical shift is where the real change happens.
There's a famous ancient proverb referenced in the source that says, "A soft answer turns away wrath." But a lot of people misinterpret that, don't they? They think a soft answer means being a doormat.
It's a very common misconception. A soft answer has absolutely nothing to do with passivity or rolling over.
Yeah.
It is actually an incredibly active, deliberate choice. It means having the emotional strength to make space for a difficult truth, while fiercely protecting the love and safety of the relationship at the exact same time. It is strength under control.
Which perfectly sets up what might be the single most profound concept we've uncovered in this entire deep dive. It's the realization that the ultimate goal of a conflict isn't to be right. The goal is to be righteous in how we treat the person across from us.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, we arrive at this absolute truth. You can be completely right in your point and entirely wrong in your spirit.
Let's just sit with that for a second. You could be right in your point and wrong in your spirit.
It changes how you view every argument.
Imagine a scenario where a couple is arguing about finances. One spouse goes to the computer, pulls up the spreadsheets, points to the bank statements, and completely, systematically dismantles the other person's argument.
They've got all the receipts.
Right. They use flawless logic, undeniable facts, but they do it with a raised, condescending, aggressive voice. They definitively win the debate.
And then they spend the next 3 nights sleeping on the couch.
Exactly.
Because having all the facts on your side does not give you a free pass to scorch the earth. Having the moral high ground doesn't mean you get to use it as a sniper tower.
I love that visual, a sniper tower.
Yeah. If your spirit is hostile, you will win the battle of facts, but you will inflict massive damage on the trust and intimacy of the relationship.
Because at the end of the day, when the dust settles, the question your partner is asking isn't, did they have their facts straight?
No.
The question their heart is asking is, did they communicate with me in a way that honored my dignity?
Exactly. We have to separate the validity of our grievance from the cruelty of our delivery.
So to bring all these threads together and recap the core journey we've been on today, we've established that couples raise their voices, not out of a desire to destroy their connection, but out of a desperate, primal urge to be heard, respected, and taken seriously.
Right.
But the grand illusion of the volume knob is that it creates clarity, when in reality, all it does is trigger the brain's defense mechanisms.
The amygdala hijack.
Yep. It creates distance, it creates walls, and it creates wounds that you are eventually going to have to spend a massive amount of energy going back to repair.
And as anyone who has been in a long-term relationship knows, repairing the damage of a blown-up argument takes infinitely more energy and time than simply pausing would have taken in the first place.
So the goal isn't to never disagree. The goal isn't to walk on eggshells either.
Definitely not.
The ultimate goal is to build a foundation of safety where both of you can stand there and confidently say, I can tell you the absolute truth without destroying you, and you can hear the deepest parts of my heart without dismissing me.
That level of safety is where the real generational healing begins.
So to you, listening to this right now, the next time you feel that familiar tightening in your chest, the spike in your heart rate, and that overwhelming instinct to just shout over the language barrier, remember this conversation.
Yeah, remember the static.
Remember that turning up the volume will actively destroy the very understanding you are so desperately trying to achieve. Take the breath. Take the pause.
And as we close out today, I want to leave you with one final thought to mull over, building on what we discussed regarding learned behavior. I want you to think about the invisible inheritance of your own communication style.
The invisible inheritance.
Yeah, take a hard look at the dynamics in your relationship right now. Are the explosive arguments you are having with your partner today actually just echoes of the arguments you passively absorbed in your childhood home decades ago? Are you just playing out a script that was written by someone else? And more importantly, what would happen to your marriage and to your own peace of mind if you finally decided to be the one to break that generational script forever?
That is an incredibly powerful question to walk away with and a challenge to all of us to do the work. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. We'll catch you next time.